I don't know. You do the intro, whatever you come up with, and go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bass Cafe with Holly and Dean. I'm Holly.
And I'm Dean.
We are on our ninth episode.
No way. Really?
Yeah, we've
9. That's one away from 10.
we've talked about bass for almost 20 hours now.
That's more than anyone else on the planet ever.
You're welcome.
It's got to be a world record.
I think it's a world record.
It has to be. I want Guinness here. I want them to watch all of these episodes and be like, listen, no one has paid this much attention to the bass players.
That's right. And in this episode, we are going to be discussing what it takes to be more than just the bass player.
No way. More than the bass? Like what? Like more strings or what? What do you mean?
Well, becoming a multi-instrumentalist is something very high on people's to-do lists. I think most people get into becoming a musician to play more than one instrument. They pick up the bass because whatever reasons. We've covered a lot of those in our other episodes. But
Yeah, I
some
think
people,
we've been slowly getting here because we've talked about how, you know, so many bass players have to move to other instruments and how so many people from other instruments move over to bass, right? So
yeah,
it's so important to I believe in there was a quote from our guest coming up, but it's just about uh it's about like just making I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to give anything away. But just like making sure that everything is full, and sometimes we could switch around and you need to be a guitar player to in this song for this musician, to help with the bass line or anything like that.
yeah, exactly. And our guest today is Tony Montana or Cardenas Montana from Great White, and he's a multi-instrumentalist.
Dun,
Yeah, he's
dun,
been a good friend of mine for a long time, and he started out as a teacher of guitar and bass. And how he describes what he thought of with music is, there's the bass clef, there's the treble clef, and you learn all of it, so you don't just stop at the treble clef. And so that led him to saying yes to the gig of Great White, and the rest is kind of history. Now he's able to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. And we talked a little bit about him going into a Journey tribute band with some of his friends, and how honing in on one bassist full, or actually I think he's gonna play guitar in that band. So playing any in a tribute band or a cover band, just playing one person's full catalog really helps develop your own style as well.
Yeah, we've talked about that on previous episodes too, where that's obviously going to be a recurring theme where, we get gigs as musicians, we get gigs
Mm-hmm.
where we learn, like me, every gig I've ever had, I've had to learn someone else's catalog, right?
Yeah.
So and that's it's kind of cool to tap into it. It's almost like that Jim Carrey, Andy Kaufman kind of thing, because like when you're in a Misfits band, dude, you got to be playing bass like the bassist of the Misfits. You can't be up there
Yeah.
like some schlep. Like you got to be playing a Misfits song, like
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit because he went on in, I think, 2010 to play with Slash. He played bass for Slash. So I asked him about if he played with his fingers or pick, because we all know that Duff McKagan plays with a pick, and
that
other musicians
tone.
played for Slash plays with very punk style with a pick. And he said he did play most of the songs with a pick, but he also did kind of a hybrid picking and finger thing, which we've talked before about that.
Yeah, I like to sneak that in whenever I can, and like
Yeah,
and I think we're going to try and expand on this too a little bit later on, where as a bass player, you can kind of, once you do what's required of you, you can kind of sneak some stuff in there a little bit
yeah,
easier. Like if you like playing hybrid, you do what you have to do, but on like the big gig when you can and when it sounds good, it better sound good. If you're going to put something in there that doesn't belong, it better sound good.
Yeah,
right?
he said he'd pull out some of those tricks, and Slash never said anything different, so he said he was fine.
Yeah, you got to do it when he's in the middle of the, the solo in the zone,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. So I think and also he studied with Ron Anderson, who's big time vocal coach here in LA, and he studied with Ron so he could preserve his voice and learn how to use his voice like you would an instrument. Just how we teach, everything about the bass. There's so much you can teach about your vocals and everything, and he's also, I mean, he's played guitar in bands, he's played bass in bands, he's played harmonica, he's just sang, just been a vocalist. And so, with being a
What
vocal,
instruments do you play? What's
what
like
instruments do I play? I play guitar, bass, and I sing. I'm learning keys at the moment. But those are
for me, piano unlocked itself. Like I've always been able to sit down and like, I don't know, I've always understood melody. So even though I wouldn't ever play any like Rachmaninoff, um, I would always be able to sit down and like make a chord because I understood, oh, this sounds like crap. Oh, this sounds good. like I don't
yeah,
know.
making triads and stuff are pretty easy when you kind of learn what your what your what some of the finger patterns are.
Well, yeah, now that I've learned in depth through
Yeah.
guitar, the scales, like guitar and bass, like
Mhm.
learning that stuff, it is transferable. It is absolutely transferable where I absolutely I might not have the finger mechanics, like I said, to play really fast piano, but I can sit behind a piano and given enough time, I can play any song that I know how to play on anything or
Yeah,
figure anything out because I understand what the major scale is and
exactly.
how it relates and
Yeah.
how the keys are. It's actually, I think it's easier to play piano than it is to play guitar or bass
Yeah.
because even with one of my students today, trying to explain the stagger
Mhm.
of the fifth fret of the E string being an the same note as the open A, like trying to get people to conceptualize that how the stagger goes. It's actually a lot harder on bass and guitar than it is on a piano.
Yeah, with piano,
It's right there. It's laid out.
it's laid out in such a way that you don't have to think of it vertically. You think of it horizontally,
Yeah,
and
it's vertical and staggered and offset, and then with the guitar, you have the offset of the G string to the B string, like throwing it all off. Like trying
yeah,
to explain those shapes is a lot harder on stringed instruments, I think.
yeah, yeah. So, you start with your treble clef, which is your guitar, or your basic piano clef, and then you go into your bass clef. But it's all the same, right? So you
Treble
start,
clef on piano is your right hand, and then
yeah, it's your right hand, and
and
then
the
you
bass clef is your
move
left hand.
over, yeah, register on your bass clef. But starting out with just that it you that's what everybody normally starts out with, and they see all of that. But it's just continuing it down. It's just it's all the same clef. You're putting a break in there, so that your mind has to kind of do both. But yeah, piano is going to be kind of interesting reading everything, but I'm really understanding now because obviously you have your bass note in whatever chord you're doing, and so starting to see the differences in how those are laid out. The the half steps in between, or the whole steps in between, and it's you just have to learn it, and you just have to practice
But
it.
overall, right, just like anything else, no
Yeah.
matter the instrument. So,
Uh-huh.
all right. So even before I knew anything like mumbo jumbo music theory, nerd crap, before I knew any of that, um, I once bought a violin just cause, right? I had extra $75. I went to this music store, pawn shop, one or the other, because that's what I used to frequent. And I just bought this thing. I brought it home. I rosined up the bow, and I shit you not. I played Mary Had a Little Lamb immediately just by moving my fingers. And I just like followed the melody. I hit one note, got one note, and then moved my hand and pushed down and made noise. And I shit you not, like, there's no reason. I'm not a savant.
Yeah.
I'm not a prodigy. I didn't play, a Mozart concerto.
Well, there's a
But
reason
I was
this.
able to pick up and play the melody to Mary Had a Little Lamb on my first try. And that's everyone can do that with everything. You just got to
Yeah, well,
pick it
there's a
up.
reason they start you with, that or like hot cross buns. It's something everyone knows, and it's all what the major scale, and you're just picking out the intervals basically. You're listening for intervals, and if
Ooh, Holly, what is an interval?
what is an interval? An interval is the space between tones. Um,
Or the space between 2 points in real life. It would be any interval
Interval,
in
yeah,
life, right? So
yeah,
it's exactly the same in music. It's the
yeah.
distance between two notes.
Yeah. So if you have your major scale, and you have your pattern whole half whole half, then your tone those are your intervals, and they change whenever you're going from different scales or your uh, different modes, uh, just based off of where you're going to start on the major scale. And we've covered a tiny bit of that before. We're going to go
Little bit.
more into that later on. Start connecting the dots.
Right.
But yeah, basically, if you're learning at a young age what intervals are, because you're not tone deaf. There's a very very small select people, or a few people in the world that could actually be tone deaf, and it would be a medical thing. Um, so you can understand a song, so you would know intervals without even knowing what, if I said, oh, this is an interval between this note and this note, you would already pick up on that, because that's what the brain already does. So starting out with any instrument with simple tiny, small patterns like that, with the intervals not being so crazy and vast, and also not fat, the rhythm not being very fast, your brain picks up on it. So it's good to
I
start.
have some great stuff
You have some.
that Holly is going to edit in right here.
Perfect.
And it's going to just show you what we mean by intervals. Some of it's going to look like alien language, and some of it might look like something, but these are just resources online. If you go to Google and you look up intervals, you can find tons of resources. I can promise you guys that anything I don't know, when I hear something and I'm like, oh, what was Rick Beato talking about in that lesson? Like, what is this dominant 7 sus 4 flat third chord he was talking about? I literally just type it into Google
Yeah.
and I look up chord diagrams and I look up images and I look up articles, right? Um, any of this stuff that does sound like that you guys want to take from these podcasts, look it up, like try and figure out what we're saying. Put your questions in the comments below, right? Ask us, we'll put it into an episode. But if you hear something and it's kind of cool and you're like, hey, I how am I going to do that? Type it into Google.
Yeah.
Just learn it.
Yeah.
Just learn it. Go for it. I'm sure there's a course on it somewhere.
Yeah. It's like when you're learning a new language, you really just have to be very interested in the dialect and the words, and what is this called, and what is this, and
Well,
what
I
is it.
don't have a teacher, right? So I am a teacher. You are a teacher, but I am also a student and I am a lover of music and melody. And I
More.
don't have anyone to give me assignments.
Yeah, I think we're more of a student than we're teachers. Honestly, I think we're.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm learning all day long. I'm learning all day long, even when it's like writing my own stuff.
Yeah.
Um, because I want to always be better. It's just I've had this addiction where, and this comes along to being a multi-instrumentalist.
Mhm.
Um, I've had this addiction to really just want to know.
Yeah.
I just want to know. I want to know all the ins and outs. I picked up a guitar and I picked up my bass and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." And I wanted to learn that control, right?
Yeah.
It's not just going into the gym and lifting weights, right? That's like punk rock or thrash metal. But when you want to when you actually I actually want to just I love sitting down behind my guitar and like having a random song being on and being able to just play on top of it. Maybe I figure out some of the chords, maybe I don't, but I know that what I play goes with that song and I like it. And I love just jamming on it, whether it's bass or guitar. I've always loved just honing into that song, like almost to get Bruce Lee about it, right? To
Mhm.
become one with the song. That doesn't just mean that you're learning that person's parts, right?
Mhm.
But you're also learning how to put yourself into it, like a good bass player should do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't just play to the song. You don't just always just follow the guitar, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes you have to add to the guitar.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what Tony and I were talking about. Being in the headspace of a bass player. A real bass player that can
Right.
take
Headspace is so important.
can take that song to the next level. You're listening to a song, you're like, I can do this better, and then you do it better because you know that the feeling of the song needs to be manipulated in that way. And that's what's so great about being a bass player is that we do manipulate the feeling of the song. We have complete control over that, and
We have control over the hips, baby.
it's awesome. Yes, we do.
Yeah. And the heads. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, you know.
The head starts bobbing, the feet
I just
start,
saw a video clip.
body starts going.
I just saw a video clip of me playing with Michael Graves, and it was Descending Angel, and it was a Jerry only bass solo.
Mhm.
And it was like once I went to the front of the stage, the show was in Montreal. It was the first tour I did with them. Um, Once that bass solo came out, people like erupted, like they you don't ever hear a bass solo in like a Misfits song, you know what I mean? Like you hear some stuff, but that has like this like part where like the bass like stands out. It's just like these dumb little runs, like do 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 do
Yeah.
do do, like, but they erupt with it. It's still it's exciting, when you get to do that as a bass player,
Mhm.
and when you get to sneak in what you want.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And what's cool about being a bassist is you can do that with guitar. You can't really do it as much because as soon as the guitar goes, that's where the audience looks. Whether the singer's singing or not. If the guitar's doing a crazy, fill in there, people are looking at the guitar player as well. But if the bass player's putting a cool fill in there, the
Yeah,
attention
we
doesn't.
definitely get to sneak it in more. If you want to do anything obvious, right? You have to be a total trickster. You have
Yeah.
to like not do it, not do it. Don't do it at the show and it's like one person. Don't do it at the show and there's like five people. But if you do it at the show that's like sold out, and like if you're gonna do it good. If there's like a pause in a song, I was saying this to Holly before, if there's like a pause in a song and you really want a bass line there, you just have to make sure that you're not gonna screw it up, that it's really
Yeah.
gonna make it better. And if you do it and there's like a drop and you put your little bass lick in there and it hits, you'll get to keep it forever. But if it fails, you're screwed. But you could pull out the tricks. You just got to do it at the right time. Like
They have to think that it's their idea or that it was somebody else's idea.
be like, I don't know, man. I just saw the crowd and it just happened.
Have this thing about it. It's really made the song.
The bass run oh, I'm a huge advocate. I know that the world the world of musicians getting paid is going to hate me for this because I'm pretty sure Metallica doesn't get the money. But And Justice for Jason is
Yeah.
my favorite Metallica album of all time. It's and Justice for All with the bass turned up. It's a different album.
It was Justice for Jason. That's
Yeah,
right.
dude. And they did a remaster in 2018. Metallica, when they did their like rock band thing, they had to release their masters
Yeah.
because when you mess up in rock band, that instrument cuts out, and no one ever had access to that before.
Oh, gotcha.
So they released their masters, dude. It was like the first thing to go out all over the internet. You could look up everything from every Metallica song and find an isolated track because of fucking rock band.
Is that right?
Yeah, dude. Like, but it's the best sounding version of And Justice for All. It's so good.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Have you ever heard it?
I know we've talked about it. I haven't really looked it up as much.
Oh man, I'm gonna send you a link and you're gonna have to look it up. You're just gonna but first you have to like listen to Injustice for All, like when you're like cleaning your house or something, right? When you're doing dishes, like put that on. And like as a bass player, listen to Injustice for All, like the normal version. Then, as a bass player, listen to Injustice for Jason and feel the justice and feel it. I
Oh,
swear you could feel the justice.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, that's so important. I mean, that in itself will tell you like you have to have good bass. You have to be you have to have good bass. Whether you're gonna hire a bass player or you're gonna be the bass player, you have to have good bass. Um, I was talking to somebody the other day about doing a cover band where I'm playing guitar and singing, and we'd have to have a bass player, and I would have to pick a bass player that I trust that I really like, you know?
So like as a bass player, so to expand on that, right? As a bass player, I think you should like if learning guitar seems like a lot. If you're like, man, I'm just barely playing bass. Like, what am I? You're telling me now I got to learn guitar and I got to learn harmonica and I got to learn violin. Like, that's so much. You don't really have to. You just learn, like, make yourself aware of it, right? Like, if you play bass, pick up a guitar and play a bass line that you know and get acquainted with it.
Yeah,
And once you get acquainted with it, right? Because luckily, as far as an electric bass goes, or a 4-string bass and a 6-string guitar, the 4 lower strings of the 6-string line up perfectly with the 4 lower strings of the 4 strings rather of the bass. So anything you know how to do on that 4-string bass, you know how to do on that guitar.
yeah,
After you get yourself acquainted, you just learn yourself a couple of open chords, like a
yeah.
G major chord, a C major chord, and a D major chord. You learn those 3 chords,
Mhm.
you'll have a pretty it's going to feel like Twister on your fingers compared to playing bass, right?
Yeah,
But it's and it might seem like a super tall order, but I think that you don't have to like worry about becoming a shredder, being a bass player first and then going over to guitar. What you
yeah,
like some of the greatest guitar players and singer-songwriters on the planet don't even play their solos. Like someone else does.
yeah, yeah,
But just learning the open chords, learning your G major, your C major, your D major, your E major, your A major, and then the minors of those. Or
mhm,
like the Cage system, right? CAGED.
yeah,
You learn those songs, that's basically every song on the planet.
yeah. You go into your sevenths.
My B minor 7th is my favorite. But
Yeah, there's a lot of things you that transfer over, and especially with writing. A lot of people write. I know a lot of people that write on bass, or they like to write on bass. They don't necessarily play bass live, but they write on bass, and it's just as Tony was saying in the interview, it's a different way of thinking, and it's a different headspace and mindset to go about writing the song or
because
manipulating.
it's taking the triads, right? So we were talking about that before. You take your triad as a bass player, which is your 1, your 3, your 5, and you play it outright. Right? You don't play it as a chord. As a guitar player for rhythm, they're playing that as an overall encompassing hum, right? Like a strum, and we're navigating and we're walking through it. It's like as a bass player, you got to like walk on that silky tightrope and
Yeah.
hone it all together, right? That silky smooth tightrope. That's how you have to approach your triad, like
Mhm.
like a slithering snake almost, you know, or like a lion getting ready to pounce. You just gotta,
Yeah.
you're getting ready, right? Super smooth. And that's how you're navigating through your triad versus giving the hum, you know?
Yeah. The long, yeah. But I mean, and then you can also just hang on the
Was
one.
that a good description, by the way?
It's a really great description. Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. You're dancing around. You're dancing around what a guitar player does a power chord. You can dance around on that 1/5 octave, or and really make
And for
that.
me, I throw that 9 in there, which
Yeah.
quiz time. Anybody who's listening, I will say the answer immediately. But what is another word or another number for the ninth? My favorite interval, right? What is another way of saying the ninth? It's the
You
second
it's like you want to say it. Or,
octave of the second.
yeah, you're just continuing your.
Right. And so I was talking with another one of my students. It's really good to know that in the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? In your major scale, the do, re, fa, and so, 1, 2, 4, 5, the intervals of the major scale, 1, 2, 4, and 5 are neutral. So you
Mhm.
can play them, and it doesn't matter if um if you're playing in a heavy metal band or if you're playing in a beach rock band, you can play those 4 notes in the appropriate scale.
Yeah.
They'll always fit. And when
Yeah.
you do that, and I was also saying, like, when you know that, a bass is only 4 strings, so it's like super easy to find the octave.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
super easy to find the octave. It's super easy to play just that caged kind of 1, 2, 4, 5 over major or minor chords. Um, you
God,
know,
I'm
and
such a nerd. I
no,
never would have thought 13-year-old me when I got my first guitar. I never would have thought that I would have known all this stuff. I can't even believe it.
yeah, you just start learning. And what's funny is that 13-year-old you didn't realize how easy it was either.
Yeah, how easy slash hard, right? Because like as
Just
as
no,
everything presents itself in this eureka moment, right? And this has been for 24 years. Will you know that on February 10th, I will have played guitar for 24 years.
wow.
24 years I've been trying to figure out all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Congrats.
It's harder
Have you
without a
figured it
teacher,
out?
I'll tell you.
Have you figured it out?
100%.
100%?
Yeah, well, like realistically, like I probably figured out like 92% of all music, you know. But that last 8% is like the hardest of the hardest. You know, like
It's like the 80.
I can't play like all like 92% of all music, you know what I mean? But I understand it all.
It's
You
like
know,
the
like
80/20 rule. It's like 80% of it's really easy and you can pretty much get away with like doing that 80%. But
yeah,
the
yeah, that last 8% that or so that I don't know, you know, that
20%,
bullshit number that I just made pulled out of thin air. But like that last bit that I don't know is just really, really hard. It's just another complex level. And anything past that, because music is infinite, right? Um, anything else past what I would consider to be like 100%, it's just gonna be either like too fast or too many whatevers to be really anything, you know, like to sound like anything other than like a fucked up Morse code. It's 2 F
yeah,
bombs.
yeah,
Yeah, like for the most part, like I get it now. I completely get it. Complete opposite feeling of that very first day when
yeah,
I was like, "What?"
yeah. Yeah, it's in a lot of it, which I get to see this in my students is just being comfortable with your instrument. The people who are great at their instruments are just really, really comfortable with it. And so, you know, Joni Mitchell, she had a lot of really cool tunings, and so she knew how to manipulate the songs that way. But half the time, she didn't know what she was doing. She just did a tuning that sounded pretty, and she would bump along with it and make up a pretty melody with it. And she has so many albums, you know, she's written so many songs, and that's kind of what it is. You know, you get used to enough of it to where you know how to manipulate it to what how you feel your music, how your music wants to come out of you, and then you start creating and you break those rules and those barriers and really
It's
become.
just like it's like learning that, okay, I like the way this sounds. Remember how to do that thing.
Yeah, yeah, little
This
tricks.
sounds cool. Keep it right here. You know,
Mhm.
not back here. Keep it
Yeah,
right here.
yeah,
Next cool thing you find, keep it right here.
yeah.
You
Like
know, play it all the time, practice it all the time. But you just keep it right there, and then when the opportunity strikes, you can throw it in.
yeah.
Because as I've gone on record saying, I don't believe there is such a thing as improv. Improv to me would imply that you've never done this thing before. Bullcrap. Anything that we are going to do on stage, we did 10,000 times in our basement before we went up on stage because we don't want to embarrass ourselves. You know,
Yeah.
like other than things such as getting feedback and stuff like that. But like if we're playing notes and we're playing licks,
Mhm.
like the odds of you playing something that you've never played before. No, like
Yeah.
if you sat there and practice your major scale like you're supposed to and practice your minor scale like you're supposed to, and you are able to go up on stage and comfortably look at someone and be like, all right, we're playing in what, B minor, sweet, got this. Like
Got it.
if you can do that, you're not playing anything you haven't played before.
Yeah, and
Like,
that's what I teach a lot of or I tell a lot of people who come to me for advice on music is, you know, it's not that hard if you just make yourself comfortable with the possibilities, and the possibilities can be endless. You just have to really, um, you know what key you're going to be playing in, and know the major scale and know how to work that major scale, and it's you're really that close. You're that close.
the
And
7 diatonic modes.
you all come off the major scale.
Yeah, but you learn those 7 shapes.
Yeah. But you can learn the seven
You'll know
shapes.
almost every song.
Yeah. But you can also just learn the major scale and learn your pattern, whole half, whole half, and learn
You know, it gets confusing, and you don't have to deal with it as much on bass. Is when you get to like diminished stuff.
diminished. Yeah.
Diminished, yeah, like flat 5, major 7th chords and stuff like that. When you have to play over top of them,
Yeah. Well, if you're talking about
that stuff gets hard. But like a lot of the time, like if you have a guitar player who's playing some funky chord,
mhm.
um, you could all chords are inherently either major or minor.
Yeah.
Um, all scales are inherently either major or minor. They might have, you could play a chord that has a major 6th and a minor 3rd. That would be your Dorian equivalent. You can still have a bass run that's a 1 4 5 that works with it. You know,
Yeah.
you would have to line it up so you don't have conflicting notes. You don't want to play the 5 while he's playing the 6 if it's an arpeggiated chord, because you might get a confliction. But if you do a quick move, you know, you just have to learn. If that sounds like nerd talk, run your major scale,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
That 1 2 4 5 an octave can really save you. And that's what a lot of people know anyways. It's that
Yeah,
little box system, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Yeah, a 1, 2, 4, 5. If you play bass, right, and you have no idea what I'm talking about, it would be the third fret on your E string with your index finger, your fifth fret on your E string with your ring finger, your third fret on your A string with your index finger, and your fifth fret on your A string with your index finger. It's just that little tiny box right there.
And you're
And you
playing
can,
in the key of G.
yes, that's in the key of G, correct. But you can move that little tiny box anywhere to any song.
In any
And as long as you find the right spot, that box will work.
Yeah, as long as you're in the right key. Um,
You could be in a parallel, you could be in one of the other modes and
yeah,
maybe not, like you could be playing the mixolydian over the major,
yeah,
or you could be playing the minor over a major and like maybe it sounds like it kind of matches and it's not perfect.
yeah,
Um, but you could basically play that little box, as long as you
yeah.
look and
Well,
find the right spot
yeah,
anywhere.
because your minors are 3 and your 6.
And let's face it, like Holly just said, I mean that's everyone does it.
Yeah,
It's
everybody does.
everyone does it.
So yeah, I mean, it's I think being a multi instrumentalist, what's going to happen is you're going to learn all of that anyways. You're just going to have to learn it on different instruments, right? So if we're learning, like I'm learning keyboards right now. We have 2 set up at the moment because we're just really trying to dig in.
I see.
But
I think that's the easiest way to kind of become a multi instrumentalist too, is to play piano.
yeah, so with piano, everything's linear. It's all horizontal, so everything you can count it out so quickly. Okay, I've got to do a 1, 3, 5 on this chord, so you know that you got 1, 3, and 5, or 1, 3, and 5. Sorry, right here. So it's like it's easy to do. It's easy to go back and forth on those.
Oh
And
yeah.
uh, then there's a couple chords that you just have to know where the you know it it's all set up a certain way, just like with the
Well,
guitar.
so I think it's also cool too. Like, so if you want to be a multi instrumentalist, right? Learn. You can get a cheap MIDI controller from anywhere. Plug it into your computer,
A Kai MPK.
right? And other than like this specific technique, right? Like if you don't have money to go out and buy like saxophones and cellos, and you can MIDI control all that stuff.
Yeah, you
And you
can.
can at least get an understanding for, you know, because it's a cello part doesn't mean that you're going to play that with your hand like you would play a piano part. You're
Yeah.
going to have to come into it differently. You're going
Uh-huh.
to have to give a different finesse in your playing
Mhm.
to proper accentuate that cello. And like that's the biggest thing. It's like all these different instruments, right? They're different tones, they're different frequencies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
we're
it's really hard for me to write drum parts, so I hire a drummer because I'm not going to be able to write the same way a awesome drummer is going to be able to write. I'm probably going to hire a guitar player because I don't play guitar as much as I play bass. Um, but if I wanted to write or do demos on all of this, yeah, I'm going to do it all myself. But it is pretty easy to just learn a little bit and really take your music to a different level because you're just adding the right parts and doing the right things with them.
and I know that this is going to be really hard and a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but one of the most important instruments I think that everybody should have a solid grasp on, no matter your main instrument, the one instrument that everybody should have a solid grasp on. Can you guess it?
Bass.
The drums. The drums. Yeah, well, yeah, like obviously, right? Like no matter what, but like I would suggest to anyone is like lock in with rhythms, right? As a bass player, if you become a drummer as your second instrument, you're gonna take your bass understanding to a whole your bass writing. Once you understand drum rudiments and how to mold with it,
But
yes.
I've
Um,
seen drummers become really good writers as well. Drummers that have never picked up instruments before that they have really good pitch because that's what they've been listening to their whole life. And then, of course, they have rhythm. So drummers can be some pretty like pretty super it's like substantial players and
Well, because their whole job is to mess with time.
Mhm.
As other musicians, right? We have to mess with melody in time,
Mhm.
and they're messing with limited melody, right? Because a drum set, even though we only have 12 different notes to play,
Yeah.
um, we organize them and play them, like we play all 12 of them. Most drummers, they don't have like 12 pieces to their kit. So like they have
Yeah.
limited sounds that they work with. When they're doing like kick, snare, hi-hat, that's like us doing a 1-4-5. It's like a super simple
Yeah.
thing to them.
And
And that's like
actually,
half of what they have.
yeah, and actually, they tune their drums the same way
The
that
good
we
drummers.
and stuff. Yeah, with a drum tuner. But the way that they tune their drums is usually there's like two that are tuned. There's like three different normally like with the ones that I've seen of like how they tune them. There's like three different notes that they tune all of the different drums to. It doesn't make any sense either. Like if I was looking at my wheel my circle of fifths or whatever, it doesn't make any sense. So
Well, my drummer used to tune to A
mhm,
to I think an A triad.
an A triad. Yeah. See, I thought these would
Yeah,
be.
and he had like that's how he used to do his toms.
Uh,
But he had toms and he had roto toms, and like he tuned he we played 7 string at the time, and so like almost everything was rooted either over the open A, which was the low 7 string drop down, or an E, like standard guitar E. Um, so he tuned his drum set um to match most of those chugs, and to follow along. So that way, when he did a fill, if I did a scale run, probably in the same key. You don't always have that, and not everyone likes that. But I'll tell you, it's
I
just
really want to get really more into that, like the tuning of the drums versus the or with the tuning of the instrument. I think it's a good talking point. And it's a good subject.
I think so. I think like having things locked in, it's completely different. It's you punch differently. You're gonna if you think about the movement of air, right? If the kick drum is tuned to an E and the bass player is blasting an E
Mm,
and the guitar player is jamming an E and the singer is belting an E,
mhm.
that is a whole lot of air moving. And with the fact that the kick drum is usually hooked up to the subwoofer, you
Mhm.
can't tell me that that's not going to just like
Yeah,
make the building fall apart.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, every one of the instruments it has its own personality, it has its own thing. But when they work together, it's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and that's super cool. And so I love one of my favorite drummers is Terry Bozzio, right? Of course, because he's like drumming god. But one of
Mhm.
the coolest things about his drum set is the fact that he has his drum set tuned to have the notes.
Yeah.
He has the diatonic notes.
Mhm.
That's crazy. You
Yeah,
know,
if you have enough drums, you can do that. You can do a lot of stuff. Um,
even his cymbals.
mhm.
Like
So,
his cymbals would follow the note of the guitar chug if he was accenting with the cymbals.
yeah.
Yeah, so like all of this stuff, you have to just you have to make yourself, like we always talk about taking the gig. We always talk about making yourself useful. We always talk about networking. We always talk about marketing. We talk about building yourself up. Why? Why do we want you to do all these things? Because you got to make yourself as useful as possible. I got
Mhm.
news for you. There's always someone who could do something better. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, you might as well try and be that person sometimes. Like Um, I I have as many skills as humanly possible to try and navigate through this, like we've talked about even just the video skills and having to, move online and all these new skills that we've had to learn just to operate in what we could even call the music industry nowadays.
Yeah, we kind of have to morph into our own thing, and we really have to get our music out there, but we also have to take care of the fact that we're not making any money because we're not touring. So what else can we do uh, to help uh, our financial situation as a musician? And getting on Spotify lists and getting plays and stuff is really good. But I think writing your own records, writing your own music, and getting it out there, and using the internet as a good tool to put yourself out there. Like, obviously, there's so many things that we really have to adjust ourselves to in 2021 now. And a big part of that is just being present online. And then, of course, making sure that if we want to put a record out there, then we need to do it as soon as possible. We don't need to wait on it. We don't need to like try and
Well, I think the world has also changed now too, because nowadays you release a single. And
mm-hmm.
so you can work really hard on one song right now and release it and then work on your next one.
Yeah,
Like, you just right now the game is sustainability.
sustainability. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's what the world is right now, right? It's not like no one even if the greatest album in the world was written right now, it would get lost to the history books.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing, right now it's about building sustainable like income, so to speak, for your career, right? It's, if you're a bass player, you should be recording demos, bass and drum demos, get a basic beat from anything and put demos out there, because when we do open up, you're going to want that gig and you better say yes to it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I got to talk to Tony, and we
It
had
seemed like it was an awesome conversation, huh?
yeah, he's been in this industry for a really long time, and back in the '80s when it was super easy, and nowadays when it's super hard. So I wanted to get his perspective on what he has to do now to kind of keep his name out there. And since he is putting out his own records now and putting out a lot of, he's a Grammy nominated songwriter. So he's putting out some really cool stuff right now. He kind of says that there's not really a big market for it because it's very Southern rock and people really don't know what to do with it. But he's definitely getting himself out there in front of his audience. So I talked to him a little bit about that, and I talked to him a little bit about saying yes to the gig, of course, because that's a big thing, big motivator, just to get out there. And that's kind of what happened with him with Great White. He said yes to playing bass for Great White, and now he's able to do whatever he wants to. And when he played in this band, or where I know him from is playing in a band called 2200. These guys from Australia, and he said that was
Oh,
kind
that's
of
cool.
a scary gig to say yes to because they were going to be touring with Slash, which is fine because that's his camp and everything. But he was going to be singing. He wasn't going to be playing bass. He couldn't hide behind an instrument. He basically he had to he was the front guy, and so saying yes to that gig obviously got him to fronting now his own band and just really taking his career to different heights by not letting it interfere and into actually doing big things. And I think he has one of the coolest rock and roll voices, and he's a great bassist, great guitar player, and awesome all around guy. And this
Sick.
record that he's done, Sugar Bowl, from his new band Shadow and the Thrill, I mean, it hits close to my heart because it's Southern rock, very Southern. But it's great to see that he's a multi instrumentalist that has made his own music. So if you listen to the songs, they're very blues inspired, but you can hear the bass, you can hear the guitars, you can hear everything, and how his voice, everything accentuates really nicely. And I thought that was really cool to, because I identify with that a lot, making my own music and writing the parts and stuff. So
Right.
I wanted to get his kind of take on how how he went about it, and how he feels what he feels the importance of a bass player is.
Well, take it away.
Okay, because both you and I travel all over the place, and everything is different everywhere, and it
Hmm.
changes all the time. So we're kind of just stuck in this. Our promoters are working with, or the promoters are working with our booking agents, and the booking agents are trying not to, have cancellation fees that we have to pay, and all these things are going on between the places that we're trying to get to, and just the rules and the laws that are passed every single day. So it's so hard for us right now.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy.
yeah.
It's you know. So what can you do? Just maybe this is the time to get jump on the phone and I'm calling about 100 different stations right now
Mhm.
and just trying to chat to people and uh, at least everybody is home and there's a captive audience, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So we do our live streaming things and we do, make our little videos and stuff and that's going to have to do for now, I guess. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Is Jack Russell's Great White? Are you guys doing anything online
Nothing.
right now? Nothing. Not
No.
even. I think they're doing the cruise. What are the monster cruises and stuff, and they do some live stuff. I don't know.
I'm not sure that that's going to happen either. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't know. I really don't. I don't know if I want to be on a cruise
Well,
ship right
definitely not
now.
the cruise, but I think they were doing the bands that have been on there. They're doing some live things if you're all in
Oh,
LA,
right,
stuff
right.
like that. Yeah, yeah. But it's just
Yeah,
not even the same, is it?
yeah, right. Do we are we going to get do we get paid for stuff like
I
that?
know, right? Who knows?
No, you
Like
don't
at
get
that point,
paid. This is what happens. You get to jump in your car
uh,
and fill it up with gas and drive all over creation and spend your day for free doing something for somebody else for free. That's what it ends up being.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
eh,
No, there's got to be something that is, we've got to at least be able to continue our creativity and get something in return.
yeah, that'd be nice.
And
I like and at least a lot of my friends, you included, uh, are in tribute bands that seems to be the first one of the first the first kind of bands are going to start working.
yeah,
So
I think so.
I got involved. I had some friends that have a Journey tribute band that asked me to play, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun.
It's a lot of fun, and you get to learn a whole catalog of someone you respect, and
Oh
it's really
yeah,
nice as an artist to be able
yeah.
to.
I'm a huge Neil Sean. I'm a fan. I am
Yeah,
a fan of that guy, and his playing and his artistry, and so
yeah.
it's been really fun to dig into that. And
Mhm.
thank God that came along and they didn't ask me to do. I mean, I'm not like I respect other things like
Mhm.
Rush, let's say, or there's a bunch of Rush tribute bands or Kiss tribute bands. It's like, yeah, I like that stuff,
Yeah.
but what I want to really dedicate myself to learning 30 songs from that group and really studying in the minutia of the way that it's delivered. you know that's a lot of time. It's
Yeah,
a
it
lot of
is.
time, a lot of effort, a lot of bandwidth.
Yes.
like what you do. I mean, that guy, you know, John Paul Jones, you can, I mean, that's a wealth of information, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
such a masterful guy as
Yeah.
a player, and the
Yeah.
composition of his parts, right? It's like, you know, and I love, speaking of bass, right? Like, that's a guy to sit down and yes, learn everything
Should.
that he's ever played, right? Because he's just amazing. You know, James Jameson, right? Learn every one of those. Like, if you really, you know, my bass, my bass education
Mhm.
is kind of came in fits and starts, and you know, like I would sit down. Let's say there's one time I sat down with Stevie Wonder's original Musicarium. It's a 2 album set. I can't remember how many songs are on there. And I decided I'm going to learn every one of these bass lines. Man, and some of those cats that played on
Yeah.
those things are stupid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there you
Musicians.
go. Like,
Yeah.
dive in and just learn that, you know, try
Yeah.
to fill your head with that one thing. So anyways, I've been doing journey thing. It's been a lot of fun. It's just fun. You know,
Mhm.
it's like, I don't have to, you don't have to be all OCD about it, you know, like I am with my own stuff. Shadow and Thrill. I mean, it's pretty intense. This is more relaxed. Like, I literally could have a. This is the kind of gig where I feel like I could have a cocktail
Yeah.
doing the show.
Relax
It's
and
like,
enjoy yourself.
you know, this is fun. This is going to be fun, and the people are having fun too because
Yeah.
they just love those songs, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's wonderful. And you're a multi-instrumentalist. And on Shadow and the Thrill you have drums, bass, guitars, you have keys.
There's bassist
You have-
in the videos.
I know there's basses in the videos, there's just no bassist.
There's bass. No. Okay, there's okay. They're on 2 videos so far. There's been
I know.
we did a video for Misery where we decided to say, oh, okay, what instruments did we both play? Brent Arcement and myself. Brent plays all drums and all keys.
Okay.
I played all guitars and vocals, harmonica, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we did a video where, okay, show yourself doing everything you did. So I did a pass doing the harmonica, a pass doing guitar, a pass doing vocals, pass doing bass.
Mhm.
So I'm playing this bass right here.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah.
Oh,
Those are great.
I love this thing.
I used to play a green one.
That is badass. What's the and then the other one is the video we did for Crazy. Tony Hall was gracious enough to stop in the studio that day that we were tracking that, and he played to that track because I just knew that my style of playing bass wasn't going to fit.
Okay.
Or that somebody could do a better job, and he certainly did a bang up job.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's because you're more of a guitar player, or you wanted somebody that had a different feel?
No, when I play bass or I'm composing my part for a song for bass, I'm the bass player.
Yeah.
I think it's a different headspace. It really is, and you have, it takes me a while to get there, and maybe I just didn't have the time to really, when we're in the studio and it's costing money, and I probably could have taken, probably seriously would have taken me 2 days of playing along with the track, composing, feeling it out, and then executing that, right? Like actually recording it. Whereas a guy like Tony Hall,
Mm-hmm.
it just comes out of him because
Yeah.
that's what he does.
He oozes
And
bass.
he just, you know, it's nothing for him.
It's awesome.
He's already in that headspace.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, I feel like there's a couple of tracks on my album because I played all the bass on my album except for Crazy, and Tony did the bass track for the acoustic version of Sugar Bowl, which I ended up tracking over. We're going to use his track for the song, and then the song started evolving and getting heavier and more atmospheric and more Bridge of Sighs, Robin Trower-ish kind of sound to it. And his approach just wasn't, it wasn't driving the song the way I wanted it to. So I said, oh, okay, now it's time for me. I mean, I can do that.
Yeah.
I know how to do that.
Yeah.
So now I'm playing that yeah. So, there's a couple, there's another track that we did a cover of, it's called The Grind.
The Grind.
Yeah. The reason I can't remember is it never says The Grind in the song anywhere.
Okay.
It doesn't, but it's about having a real job.
Uh-huh.
And working for the man.
Yes.
But like that bass line, like that's a bass line. Mm-hmm. Like I wrote that as a bassist, I think should approach it. So yeah. It's a different headspace. I like guys and girls that can put themselves in that headspace just instantaneously. Like, the guy who plays with Jack Russell's Great White, Dan McNay, and I tease Dan because he has to play a lot of my stuff, and he's and every once in a while he takes a little, goes off on a tangent a little bit on some of the parts, and I always appreciate what he does. It doesn't bother me. Mm-hmm. As long as it's within the spirit of the original track, right? So I always refer to Dan as Dan, the better bassist. He gets pissed. Not pissed, but you know what I mean? Because I do believe that. I believe he's got that. He's got that mindset. It just comes out of him, just like Tony Hall. He's there.
Yeah.
It takes me a while to get there.
Okay.
It's the counterpoint, you know what I mean, of bass to what the guitars are doing.
Yep. So
it's hard to be that other guy to yourself, especially when you're making your own record.
Well, when you were writing your record Sugar Bowl, and coming from a bassist perspective, writing the bass parts, and you're putting yourself in in that bassist kind of headspace. Mm-hmm. Are you trying to marry your vocals? Or are you trying to marry your guitars and your bass? I mean, your drums more. Are you trying to do all three? Where's your approach on that?
Boy, it depends on the song, I think. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it depends on the song for sure. And I'll be honest. Some of the tracks, I'm surprised at the parts. Wow, where did that come from? Because I think they're really. I think it's well done. It's almost big. It's like stepping out of body experience, listening and going, wow.
That works.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And in the sense that it's not a guitar part that's played on a bass. It really is something that is meant for that instrument. It's meant to be complementary to everything that's going on. But I don't think I'm not one of these people that thinks the bass is supposed to be this is supposed to be you know not background but in
Just moving along.
servicing everything else. Like the bass is here to to hold up the rhythm foundation, the guitar, and the vocal. You know what? The bass should be its own thing. It should be its own thing, and it's important. It's really important, and it's a responsibility. That's the thing about playing bass in a band. It is a responsibility. You are the bridge from the rhythmic and the melodic and harmonic. And when you fuck up, everything falls apart. The whole band falls apart. And I don't think a lot of people realize that the bass is the driving band.
Yeah.
The bass player drives the band. The drummer, yeah, but the bass player holds it all together. He's the quarterback, I think, in a lot of respects, and it is a big responsibility. It's think about the biggest bands in the world: the Beatles, and the Beach Boys, led by the bass player.
Oh yeah,
Sting, bass player. So there's a lot. There's an interesting headspace to those of guys that play and are the leaders of the band. But I think the bass drives the band. I think it's and you need that guy. You need that guy or girl. Sorry, I always say guy.
That's okay.
Because I'm just I'm thinking from my perspective, right? But I don't want to play with a bass player that isn't taking control. Like, you better take control. Like, if I'm playing guitar or singing or whatever, the bass player needs to be driving and pulling the band and directing the band. And in a lot of respects, in a lot of bigger type bands, organizations, like the bass player is usually the music director as well. Why is that?
Yeah,
it makes sense to me. But I like a bass player that takes that plants himself, herself, is there and is like, okay, this is where we're going.
Yeah,
I'm like, cool.
The solid.
Don't worry about where we're going now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it really puts everybody at ease when you have a bass player that steps in and knows the songs, knows what they're doing. You don't have to worry about them because you do have to worry about all the highs. You have to worry about all the guitar squeaks and all the the cymbals and the vocals and stuff that's that people really do pick up on sonically. Bass is the feeling of the music, so they can feel it when it messes up. But if you have a bassist that's fine and they can hold it down, and whether they're flashy or not, they can at least hold it down and drive the songs. It's a walk in the park.
That's why I think the best adjective, solid.
Yeah.
That's what you want for your bass player. You want your bass player to be a solid. Person. They have to be a solid person. They can't be flaky. They can't be flaky. They need to be a solid person and serious.
Yeah.
That's why I guess maybe a lot of times they are the musical directors for some of these like the kind of bands that are just bands behind, let's say, a big singer or whatever. That's why I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've played bass in bands before, and you've sang in other bands before. You've kind of taken all these different roles. What's your favorite? Do you have a favorite? Do you like just playing guitar in Great White, or playing guitar in your original band? You like playing bass? You like singing, or do you just do an accumulation? Is that your favorite?
I tell you, to just front a band is as a vocalist
Mm-hmm.
is it's a very freeing experience. You don't have to worry about what's plugged in,
It's true.
what
Just your
your ear
microphone.
sounds like. You got a mic,
Uh-huh.
and you don't have to worry about being in tune,
Yeah.
or there's just it's a very it's almost like there's not enough to do.
Yeah.
I honestly
Yeah.
like when I was doing it with 2200, um, it felt you feel a little guilty. It's like
Yeah.
everybody else is working so hard,
Yeah.
Everybody else is working hard.
Microphone.
I just got this microphone and that's it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I
I
mean,
can
you gotta
walk
warm
off
up.
whenever I'd
Yeah.
walk off when the guys are doing
Yeah.
solos. I'm like, later. Yeah, you get busy there. I'm gonna
You do
go.
a shot.
We go to the side stage, have a sip of tea or whatever. You do your thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like a guilt thing. It's like, wow, what
No
can I be
wonder
doing right
singers get
now?
LSD, lead singer disease.
Yeah, maybe the
A
same
walk
thing.
in the park.
Yeah, right. You have to take.
We do talk on Bass Cafe because it's all around bass. It's bass oriented. How important the bass is, and how important our job is, and how kind of little respect some of us get. You know,
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
but we're kind of
But
doing one of the bigger jobs.
no, it is. I think it is the without a you got to have a great drummer.
Yeah.
You got to have a good drummer. But again, I think the bass has to again is the bridge.
Yeah.
The bridge between the rhythmic and harmonic.
Yeah.
And
I always say it's like building a house. Your drums are the foundation. Your bass is the walls and structure, and all of the highs, like your vocals and guitars, are the roof. And
yeah, I even take it further than that. I think you're right there. I think that's a good analogy. I just say that the like guitar solos and singing, that's like the doilies on the couch.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
The fun stuff.
do
The
we really
paint,
need all that?
the
Ah,
paint.
need a solid beat, and a good groove.
Yeah, yeah.
You can put anything on top of that.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know? That is the other thing too about playing bass too is that meshing, that groove feeling of playing with the drums
Mhm.
and that sense of rhythm. And I would say that I'm probably a lot better than I used to be. Even playing bass in Great White is very. I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. It's very Anglo-Saxon music, right?
Yeah.
It's not, we're playing rock music, rock and
Mhm.
roll, which is black music. It's
Mhm.
from the blues,
Yeah.
born of the blues, and there is there's a sense of groove there that is not part of 80s rock, not
Yeah.
all of it. So
It's
we can
from
try to introduce a little bit of it, and
yeah.
if we can get just a little bit of that, then that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That makes it feel deep, and the music feels rich, and
Mhm.
and being able to play in quote unquote in the pocket, right? um, to marry the drums and the music through the bass and set up a groove of feeling.
Yeah.
How does that
The
feel?
feeling of the song.
You're working it's a spell. A song is a spell, and when you're doing it right, everybody is in the spell. You know, they're in there with you, right? Hit a bad, note or fall out of the groove, or all of a sudden things aren't
all of a
jiving.
sudden they leave.
And then they're out. You break the spell. You've broken the spell, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's important for the bass to do that. I think I'm better at that now, and it's because I get to play with different drummers.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brent Arsman is
Mm-hmm.
is a phenomenal drummer. He's so good. John Knox is another guy that plays out with me and Shadow and the Thrill, and John is just phenomenal. Chuck Cummings was a great drummer out here in Orange County, California too. Very Bonham-esque the way he plays. Just big, solid, beat, and then Dickie, who plays with me and Jack Russell's Great White, is he's just an amazing. He's the Swiss Army knife. He can play just about anything, and really make it feel good too. So I tell you what, even in my band now, in Shadow and the Thrill, I would love to be able to switch back and forth as Sheryl Crow does. Sheryl Crow will play bass and she'll play guitar, and she'll just flip flop, just according to how she feels she wants to approach the song. And Paul McCartney does the same thing, right? Having somebody that has that sensibility, that would be fun. I wouldn't mind turning over the guitar chores to somebody else for a song or for a couple songs in the set.
Because there's more focus there. And I kind of want to talk about that. You're singing and you're playing at the same time. I know this might sound almost kind of juvenile to ask, but I think with our audience, it's kind of important to do you think playing guitar or playing bass is harder when you sing?
It depends on the music, right?
Yeah. Are you on autopilot anyways because you've done it for so long?
I think it depends on the bass part, right? Like some bass parts are moving, or you're doing counterpoint to the band or to the guitar part or to the vocal, right? So you're playing something rhythmically that your voice, that your singing brain can't really get around. That's why Paul McCartney is just like this fucking genius. I don't know how he does it, right? He's playing who knows what and then singing something different. Same with Geddy Lee
Geddy Lee is just thinking of him. Yeah, it's insane. It's like you have to have this autopilot thing, and it's almost like you'd have to do it on every instrument that you learn, right? Even if you were a drummer, you'd still have to figure out how to autopilot singing and drumming. Guitar, same with bass. I don't know. I do both. I do both, and I think playing maybe acoustic or just chords and singing is a lot easier than playing bass and singing for me.
Playing bass, I think, is tricky just because you're talking about singular notes and then a rhythmic pattern of those different notes. I mean, my best example for me, at least, was learning the Rock Me bass part, which is kind of a pretty notable bass track, which was the former bass player with the band. And from my understanding is that it was a part that was created measure by measure in the studio by the producers, kind of directing him. And so he'd play a riff, and they're like, okay, keep that. Okay, next, let's go through that, add something else. Okay, that sounds good there. This riff here, that phrase, da, da, da. So the whole song is, there's nothing that really repeats itself. The different fills and riffs don't really repeat themselves. But the bass part over the chorus is counterintuitive to what you have to sing as a background, do your background parts or whatever.
Mm.
Man, that one was, it took a while. You have to go again, like you say, you got to kind of learn it, and it has to be muscle memory, autopilot, while you're trying to sing these notes and this rhythmic phrasing that's different from what you're playing in your hands. Yeah, like I said, Paul McCartney is like, wow, Geddy Lee.
Yeah, and bass and guitar are different octaves too. So when you're playing bass and you're singing and matching octaves or singing that inside of that octave instead of like your guitar where that octave is, it kind of messes with your brain too. Is if you just really have to concentrate on it.
I really like playing in bass and singing too.
Yeah.
Although I guess I've never played bass and done a lead vocal. So I have to say that I guess I've never really done that. So
Okay.
I don't. I've done plenty of background vocal parts, obviously,
Yeah.
while playing bass.
And guitar too, I'm sure.
Oh well, yeah. Oh yeah. But it would be interesting. It would be
Yeah.
interesting. That would be a study at all.
Well then you have some homework to do if you want to be Mr. Sheryl Crow, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be fun, because that's the other thing about bass. I just had this conversation with somebody online, in that it's so much less OCD as opposed to guitar playing. Guitar playing,
Yeah.
there's so many.
Yeah.
At least rock guitar, loud rock.
You hear
guitar.
everything.
Yeah, loud, compressed, rock guitar. It's an animal. Your hands are always controlling that instrument and keeping it from squealing and doing whatever it does, or making more notes and open notes, and so you're always, tending to it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with bass, it's not. It's just less so, I guess. There's less strings. They're bigger, and you can be less dainty about it.
Yeah, I think there's more room.
When I was playing with Slash, I just pounding on that fucking thing.
Yeah,
pounding on it, and that's another great feeling of playing.
Yeah.
Rock bass, playing with a pick, rock bass, you're pounding on that thing, and all your aggressions are gone for the day.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask. So, were you playing with a pick on all the Slash when you were playing with Slash?
Well, that's what he said.
His tone that he prefers.
I would. There are times, and you can hear that Duff is playing almost all the parts.
Mm-hmm.
He is playing with a pick.
Yeah, he's even
in the Velvet Revolver stuff. But I'm a guy that I can play with my fingers. I can play with a pick. And I do have a technique where I can palm the pick, right? I can palm it, and I'll use my fingers for a part, and I'll bring the pick out, palm it.
Yeah.
And go back and forth. That is actually, I think, that's a reasonable technique to know.
Yeah.
I would. I'm trying to think of what song's a good example of that. Fall to Pieces is a Velvet Revolver tune that I would do and it just didn't sound right to play the verse part or the intro part with a pick. It's too present. It's too present. So I would roll back the tone a little bit, tone control, and I play with my fingers, and then pull that pick out, and unpalm it, and go back and forth. And he never said anything. It didn't bother him at all because it sounded good.
Yeah.
In fact, I think we did an iTunes live session of that song. It's on like an Apple iTunes live session.
Yeah.
So that turned out pretty good. I think we did Communication Breakdown too, which I played with my fingers.
Mm-hmm. Who sang that?
Miles Kennedy.
Oh yeah, Miles was always singing for songs.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But there you go. I mean, so Communication Breakdown, I don't, well, you would probably know better than I think John Paul Jones played with his fingers.
Yeah, he the only time he really ever played with the pick that I know of was Whole Lotta Love.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only pick song, and I could totally be wrong, but that's the only one.
You could see him on the live Zeppelin stuff. You could see him all of a sudden he's playing with the pick. You go, oh, okay,
yeah,
that makes sense because it just calls for it.
Yeah,
I had a weird argument with one jackass one day about Chris Squire.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, because he came to me and I was playing bass at the time and playing with a pick. He goes, hey, why are you playing with a pick? I go, well, I got to be able to do both. He goes, Chris Squire doesn't play with a pick. I go, oh no, he does. He does. You can see plenty of video of Chris Squire, one of the greatest rock bassists of all time.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, he'll use a pick because it's just appropriate. It sounds right.
There's an appropriateness to it.
The scrape of the pick on the string, sometimes that's a good sound. I love it. I love a Tortex yellow. I think it's 0.83 or something like that. Pick against a good round wound.
Yeah.
Maybe like even a roto sound. Those are great strings, but that little bit of that sound of this, a little bit of that pick scraping against the winds. That's its own thing, that's it's a growly sound. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. You have to figure out what's great for the tone for what you're doing, and that's what's cool about bass is there are so many things that go into the tone of the bass, even from your fingernails being the wrong length. And so I on all the John Paul Jones stuff, all the Zeppelin stuff, I play flat wounds and I play with my mids and my highs down pretty low. I mean, it's just I need that tone of that that bass tone and that he has. And if I was playing in a metal band, I'd probably use round wounds with a heavier pick or
sure.
Or maybe I wouldn't use a pick and I just use heavier strings. But yeah, it's all about the tone and what's right for the job. So
I'm watching a lot of videos too recently of Carol Kay.
Oh yeah.
And how she goes about getting her sound for those genius fucking bass lines.
Yeah.
Which are they're simple.
Yeah.
They're simple.
Yeah.
But melodic and absolutely a hook on their own. But as opposed to a brilliant song by the Beach Boys or whatever, her part is absolutely its own little hook.
Yeah. And that's what John Paul Jones did a lot too, and
sure.
James Jamerson. I mean, it was their own little bass world, their own little melodic world, but it was done so right and so well that it married everything and helped everything in the song.
Pulls it all together. That's the job. That's the job.
Yeah, exactly.
Pull the band down the road, man.
Yeah, it's really important. So I wanted to kind of end in the conversation today with kind of motivating people, and I think one thing that we, people who are successful in this business versus people who are not successful is they say yes to the gig and they take the gigs that they may not, they may, that come along, or that they go after, and they really say yes to going after their career. And is there anything that stands out in your career that you were unsure of at first, but it really just made your career better when you just said yes to it?
Well, I suppose, deciding to commit to playing full-time bass with Great White was exactly that. I was, at the time, I was a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and I had bass students and guitar students. I had a lot more guitar students because I was proficient at that. But I was studying I was in college. I was studying um, classical music. I was studying composition and all that stuff. So it was, to me at that point, it's like it didn't matter. It's the bass clef, it's the treble clef. It's all, So learn both, play both, whatever. But I did commit to doing that, and I would have liked to play, other things during that time, but just so yeah, you say yes and you do it. Singing for 2,200, wow, that was scary. That was a scary thing, but
You
I'm
were
glad I did it.
you were the dude to do it.
Right.
Still one of my favorite records of all time, like ever.
He
Considered
is
all the time.
Mark is quite the bass guy.
Yeah, I want to talk
He
to him.
approaches it in a different way.
Mhm.
He approaches it as a lead instrument,
Mhm.
um, and he's a very proficient guy. He can play anything.
Mhm.
So yeah, but that was scary, and um, that's the trial by fire. I think I did a couple gigs here in LA with them at the Whiskey or whatever, and then a couple years later, it's standing on a stage at Wembley, full room,
Mhm.
and so and all I had was the microphone. Well, that's it. No hiding.
Yeah.
No hiding behind that instrument. So, but again, there's other advantages. You don't have to carry anything. You don't have to tune anything. But if you suck,
Yeah, maybe.
you're gonna get a bottle of somebody's gonna pee in a water bottle and throw it at you. Gross.
Has that ever happened to you?
No.
Good.
No, I've been hit with some gnarly stuff though. I'll never forget. I got hit with the Jack Daniels bottle.
Oh.
It smashed on my instrument.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was thrown from far away.
Wow.
And yeah, that was gnarly. I got played a show at the Navajo Indian Reservation once, and the room was just packed, hotter than hell. And it was a couple thousand people in there, or whatever, hot, sweaty. I mean, it was like a sauna in there, and playing, and I'm sweaty, and everybody's just dripping. And I remember I didn't see it coming, and somebody threw a Pendleton, like a Pendleton shirt, soaked with sweat.
Ugh.
I don't know who it came from, yeah, but I didn't want to know, right?
Gross.
But it was to some good sized person, and this thing went flying, and it didn't just hit me, it like caught me, and then it went
Yeah.
like a turban. It just covered my whole. I mean, it was blackout, and it was just sweaty.
Gross.
It was so that was gross. That was gross.
That's
So
disgusting.
anyway, yeah.
Was that in Great White?
Yes.
Yeah. I can imagine probably Great White back in the 80s got pretty crazy.
Yeah, we got assortment of stuff thrown up there, thrown at us. There's some ugly. There's some ugly things back then. There was a guy. I don't want to give anybody any ideas. So, but yeah, I've been hit with beer bottles. I've been hit with Jack
Yeah.
Daniel's bottle.
Yeah.
Tennis shoes. Fuck. But
named it.
yeah, the whole piss bottle thing. That's a European festival
Oh,
thing.
they're
all out there, and there's they just pee in those bottles, and if they don't like you, they'll start throwing them at you.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you, Tony, so much for your time today. Appreciate it. And
anytime for you.
Yeah, and thanks for hanging out and talking bass with us or with me.
Okay. All right. Thank you, and hopefully we'll get any questions, whatever. Just send them my way.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
All right.
Okay, so that was my interview with Tony from this
Woo!
morning. He's such a great guy.
I love getting that other perspective from someone like, just someone who's been around, done the things that I wanted to do, done the bigger things, I don't know. What is it? The grass is always greener, right?
Yeah. No, he's definitely toured with some big people, and
working with legends. It's a hell of a drug, it's addicting.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's learned so much over the years, just how to be a good bass player, how to be a good writer. A lot about tone when he's talking about how Slash, obviously he was going to use a pick because that's part of the sound, but when he was using the hybrid picking, Slash didn't say anything, so it just became part of that whole process, of him playing with another band. And it's really nice to be known as as a well-known bassist, and then when you do know more than just bass, you can go off and do other things too. And in Great White he also did rhythm guitar. In his band Shadow and the Thrill he plays guitar, and it's really cool to see bassists that will branch off eventually in their career and show how multi-talented and multi-instrumentalists they are.
Well, most of the reason why I've wanted to work with, quote unquote legends, and like part of the allure of wanting to go on tour with that band from my childhood, like the whole reason why I wanted to do that is because I want to learn off of them, right? And you just find that, one band that I kind of wanted to talk about as we wrap this up, just to quickly drop them, is the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
Like with the Beatles, you don't know who is playing what. Like you just don't, dude. Other than Ringo, you could probably guess, the other three guys, interchangeable. They're interchangeable from piano to guitar to bass to vocalist to songwriter to lyricist to whatever crazy, Maharaja instrument there is, like they just, if it made noise, they put their hands on it and they made it make more noise. And then they wrote a song around that. And like, that's the biggest and most important thing I really want to stress to everyone. It's like, don't be scared. Just whatever the instrument is, pick it up. If you play one instrument, you do already play all instruments. It's the same. It's manipulating the same sounds, just in a different tone.
Yeah, you have to trust your ear. If you can hum a note, you can find the key of the song.
Well, that's why, again, it's so important to understand what the major scale is and what intervals are.
Yeah.
And all of the millions and millions of notes that have ever been played, they're only a a combination of the same 12 notes.
Yeah.
That's it. Every song that's ever been written ever.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And being able to pull off several instruments, or at least rhythm, and understanding the role of each instrument, right? So you need to understand what the role of the drummer is. You need to understand what the role of the bass player is, which is why we have Bass Cafe. Understanding the guitar or the vocals. They all have their role. They all have a reason that they're there, and they support each other in a specific way as well.
We all have a reason.
We have a reason to live.
Well, we have a reason to be here?
We have a reason to be here.
No way.
Somebody told me that I had a reason to be here.
Yeah. How rude is that? Just walk up to a random person and be like, you have a reason to live.
You have a reason to be here.
What? What do you mean?
Oh, thank you.
Well, I want to say to everybody, thank you so very much for tuning into our podcast. This is episode number 9, right? Woo.
Yep.
Episode 9. All right.
In Spanish, they say número 9.
Oh, in German, don't they say 9?
I think that's a no.
It is.
Okay.
All right. So, man, this is so cool. Our next episode is we're gonna be filming it right before my birthday.
Yeah.
Pretty soon I'm gonna be getting up there. I'm gonna be turning 37.
Oh.
Make sure to visit both me and Holly on our Patreon pages.
Yes.
Holly is patreon.com/HollyWestMusic, and I am patreon.com/DeanMusicOfficial.
Yes.
And on all the other interwebs, right? Holly is
Facebook,
Holly West Music,
Twitch, those things.
and I'm the Music Official. Thank you guys so very much for joining us. I cannot wait to see you in episode 10. 10.
10. All right. See you later. Make sure you like and subscribe below.
Peace.